technical issue here and then we'll be started. Sorry about that. We were just getting our deputy leader set up on his screen. So firstly, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our virtual meeting of the Cabinet. And if I could just advise of the routine housekeeping before we start. So firstly, to note that this meeting is being recorded. If I can ask members to please turn on their cameras now and make sure any telephones are put onto silent mode and you remove any possible distractions. If I could also ask members to refrain from writing comments in the chat function. This is for the use of Cabinet members to indicate they would like to speak. When invited to speak, you should turn on your microphone. Please do your best to remember to mute your microphone, and then once you've finished speaking, should you forget, our technical support will mute your microphone for you. If you are intending to leave the meeting, if you could indicate this through the chat function as well, just for the accuracy of the minutes. And when we come to the exempt session at the end of the meeting, should we have one, members of the press and public will be removed from this meeting. Well, we've got a fairly busy agenda today, looking at a number of different items from the budget, the corporate plan, cultural strategy and customer services. So I think firstly we'll start off with the register of attendance, please. And I believe Lucy Bonshaw is acting as clerk today.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Councillor Kellum Cook.
Present.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
Present. Can you hear me?
Yes, I've got that. Councillor Annie Mason. Councillor Annie Mason.
Councillor Mason, I've just released your microphone.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley. From the chat function, it appears members may be unable to unmute their mics.
It's just changed, if that's any help. We couldn't, but we now can.
Right, Councillor Annie Mason.
Present.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
Present.
Councillor Robert Reid.
Present.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
Present.
Thank you.
What about me? Councillor Trollope-Bellew?
Sorry, apologies. Councillor Trollope-Bellew, apologies.
Present.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Lucy. So if we go on to the minutes of the previous meeting, so this meeting was held on Tuesday, the 18th of August, and I suppose just briefly on that, I think in relation to item 123, the refurbishment of the property on Elm Street in Stanford, I am pleased to announce that Lindum was awarded the refurbishment contract on the 28th of August. Subject to the delivery agreement being signed, and that delivery agreement is currently with our council's legal department for signature. An updated programme of works will be provided following the signing of the delivery agreement, and we're hoping that Lindum will be on site on the 5th of October with a completion date between Christmas and the New Year, so we look forward to seeing that. Obviously at the last meeting there were points raised about local government reorganisation, and I'm sure they'll come up again at this meeting. So just to say to date, we are still not in receipt of the invitation to submit from the Minister. Although interestingly enough, the Minister Simon Clarke has just resigned from the government, so we'll wait to see which minister will be writing to Lincolnshire. PA Consulting are still working for all of the 7 districts in developing the strategic business case for reorganisation. And obviously, as members will know, you have been receiving regular updates on that. The only comment I have on the minutes on page 3, and it's probably just the way in which we word things, but register of attendance, we refer to all Cabinet members were present, with the exception of Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley. I think in the future we just need to say apologies were received from Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley, just for clarity. Does any other Cabinet member have anything they'd wish to add on the minutes? No? Then I'm happy
No.
to propose them if somebody's happy to second.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Robert. Lucy, can we go to the vote, please?
Apologies. Councillor Callum Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
I abstain.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Thank you. They're carried.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy, for that. So agenda item number 3, disclosure of interests. Of course, we've all declared our interests as per the council website, but if anything does come up during the meeting, then please feel free to declare that as it arises. So items for a recommendation to council. Well, obviously it gives me a great privilege today in proposing the South Kesteven District Council corporate plan for 2020 to 2023. And I plan, if Cabinet support this today, to take this to the full council meeting on the 1st of October. And I think quite clearly the corporate plan sets out the priorities and key actions for the council over the next 3 years, which I believe will enable South Kesteven to achieve the vision of being the best district to live, work and to visit. And put simply, the corporate plan sets out what we as a council, working with partners, will deliver over the next 3 years to enable our beautiful district to flourish. And as a council, over recent months, we have been doing work via a SWOT analysis to understand the context and current performance of South Kesteven, both as a district and as a council. And this work has been used to develop our priorities, which are set out as follows. Growth and our economy are featured on pages 6 to 7. Housing, the needs of all residents on pages 8 to 9. Health and strong communities, pages 10 to 11. A strong and sustainable environment from 12 to 13. A high-performing council. And under each of the priority areas, we have developed a string of actions that will enable us to achieve the outcomes we require for the district. And these, of course, include the key priorities for the council, such as investment in leisure facilities as part of our leisure programme, the commitment to reduce the carbon footprint of the council, delivery of our key strategic sites, such as St Martin's Park, focusing on the regeneration and improvement of our town centres, building high-quality homes of all types and tenures across the district, and the implementation of the COVID-19 recovery plan. And I believe that delivering this plan will enable us to truly do that. And I was pleased that 27 members in total engaged with us on the workshops, so it meant that everybody could get involved. And if I can just say, so obviously thank you for the members for that involvement, but also thank you for the officers for the development of that SWOT analysis, both pre and post-COVID, which is the evidence base for the Council's proposed priorities, and for leading the workshops, which of course have been incredibly difficult being virtually undertaken. And I think, we've highlighted a number of achievements within here, but we've also got over 50 key actions to be taken forward to continue to improve our services. And of course, as many members will know, we did have and do have the corporate strategy, which predated this. And of course, the values within that are very much ensconced within our own corporate plan. And I think it's that also the commitment to implement the principles of equality and diversity in the decision making and all that we do. And of course, key performance indicators are developing, and these will be informed by a process of engagement with the relevant overview and scrutiny committees to be fully discussed. I think if we look at our, the finances in terms of this, we all know the finances of councils have been under pressure for a number of years, and particularly more so through COVID. But we've had a very prudent approach, which means we've been able to withstand the COVID response much better than others to achieve what we are setting out in the ambitions within this plan. So I am really pleased to present this plan to the Cabinet. I believe it sets out an ambitious but deliverable plan that will enable South Kesteven to achieve the vision of being the best district to live, work and visit. I hope you will all support this as we move forward. And I know that all members will also have a role in owning this plan, particularly not just at Cabinet level, but also through all of the scrutiny committees in scrutinising the work of the key aims, but also in developing policy to support the key aims. So I now open for discussion and debate by the Cabinet. And if I can go to Annie Mason firstly, please.
you, Leader. I think the document is clear, it's easy to read. It sets out the key actions and achievements in a concise manner. It gives clarity to what we're trying to achieve. So I think whoever was involved in putting the actual document together should be thanked. The key achievements for me, especially response from the SK Community Hub, we need to build on this, supporting the volunteer and involuntary and community sector and protecting the most vulnerable. And there's lots of key actions in that plan which will benefit all our communities and districts. So I'm looking forward to adopting this. Thank you.
No, thank you, Annie. If we can go on to Peter, please.
Thank you very much, Callum. Yeah, I mean, I'm delighted that this has come through and that we've been able to harness, I think, what is the essence of what we're trying to provide as a council. I'm particularly pleased with the outcome with the clean and sustainable environment. Obviously, we've declared our ambitions with regards to our climate action, and we're starting to deliver on those. But we've also got, more harder challenges in there. So, for example, getting food waste out across the district. And really promoting the reduce message to our residents. And like you said, with the challenges that councils are facing financially, it's incumbent upon us to embrace and harness that ambition within the corporate plan to commercially look at what we can do so that we can help pay these bills and get some of these projects off the ground in the future. I thoroughly welcome this document. I think it's excellent and it has my full support.
Thank you, Peter. Do any other Cabinet members wish to speak on this item at all? Councillor Trollope-Bellew? No? Councillor Reid?
Good afternoon, Leader. Yes, I'm pleased to see the clarity within the section on on housing, and I think it endorses the strides that we wish to improve our housing service for the tenants in that live in our houses, and in the way in which we deliver a repair service for them, and indeed the endorsement of our programme of building new houses and endorses our way forward. So I like the clarity of that, and I look forward also in our planning services to rolling out some improvements there that are also going to be accentuated by the revealing of the contents of the white paper that's coming out very shortly. Thank you, Leader.
No, thank you for that, Robert. And I think it's an interesting point you've raised, and particularly around, the performance management, because I think this, as I think I did comment, this plan will also set out how we manage performance. So if you look at page 16, it sets out the approach and the determination to develop that golden thread, which means there will be a clear link to achieving the council's vision through the corporate plan, obviously council plans, service plans, and in individual performance appraisals. Every member of what we describe as Team SK has a role to develop and a role to play in making this a success. So it's not just for us as cabinet to own; it's for the entire council, whether that be the professional staff or the elected members as well. Councillor Dobson, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd just like to say it's a very comprehensive document, very concise, and I fully support it. And I think it's a great job overall. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. I do think it is a great document. I think a lot of work has gone into this, and I would like to pay my tribute and thanks to our Chief Executive, Karen Bradford, who has now, I don't know if celebrate is the right word, but you have been with us now for 6 months during such a challenging time with COVID, dealing with a corporate restructure, dealing with a corporate plan. We're really hitting the ground running. So to thank you for Karen as well. But if there are no further speakers, I will propose the report, and Councillor Dobson, I believe you will second.
I'd like to second that, yes.
Thank you. So Lucy, if we could move to the vote, please.
Yes, certainly, Leader. Councillor Kellum Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Thank you. That's carried.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Lucy. Well, obviously, we'll look forward to that debate at the council meeting in October. So moving forward to item number 5, which is the amended budget. And if I can firstly thank Councillor Adam Stokes, our Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, for the strategic direction to us and the officer team for the development of this amended budget. I'd also like to thank all of the finance team members for the work that has been taken in developing the amended budget for the 2020-2021. I understand that the joint OSC were extremely diligent in their questioning and support, and are supporting the proposals that are presented here today. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Adam, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. As a result of the COVID-19 crisis, there is a requirement for us to amend the budget framework to reflect the changes in the income and expenditure budgets that we set only 6 months ago on the 2nd of March 2020. In fact, the Chief Executive's first meeting. But the amended budget proposals were discussed in detail, as you've mentioned, at the Budget Joint OSC on the 28th of August, and the members were supportive of the proposed amendments. There are 2 specific changes that have been made to the proposal since the report was presented at the Budget OSC. These are: it was now confirmed that the Bourne Corn Exchange refurbishment works will fully utilise the 168,000 allocated budget, and so the forecast figure for the 2021 has been amended accordingly. And also the £200,000 allocation for the replacement of the Deepings or Weather pitch has been deferred to until 21-22, with providing an agreement is made with the Football Foundation. In all other respects, the proposals that were presented to the Budget Joint OSC remain as they were. You'll notice also the recommendation on page 43 includes the request to the Council to approve an additional 0.75% to the salary budgets to reflect the National Pay Agreement of 2.75. The Council previously allocated 2% in the 2021 budget. I understand there is going to be a further recommendation and amendment shortly from Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley, but the amended budget proposals currently project a deficit position, but the report in front of you sets out a number of interventions and actions the Cabinet will oversee in order to mitigate the impact on the Council's budget stabilisation reserve. This will be kept under close review during the remainder of the financial year, and the report also sets out the proposed criteria for the Government's fees and charges reimbursement scheme. The first submission for the period April to June will be done in September, and we are forecasting a reimbursement of 1.4 million. And that 1.4 million will be on top of the other monies that we've received that is in Table 1 on page 45. But Leader, that is all I've got to say, so I would like to recommend item number 1 and 2 on page 43. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. And if I can call Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley, please, first.
Thank you very much, Callum. As Councillor Stokes indicated, I have a small amendment to propose to the Cabinet today with regards to the budget. I'm particularly pleased, actually, with the work that Adam has done with regards to the budget. I think it's excellent, and it's good that we're finally starting to see some clarity surrounding the 75 pence in the pound from the government, etc. However, and it's with some regret that this has come so late, but the officers have been working in the background on some work that was in fact COVID related, and at the onset of the coronavirus pandemic and the national lockdown, it became very apparent that one of the critical services that should be maintained was that of waste collection, and it has been benchmarked that our staff are the lowest paid waste and street scene operatives in Lincolnshire. Of course, we recognise the need to reward the diligence of the teams at that time with a £50 a week bonus. Now, this bonus is due to end at the end of September, at which time, without the amendment that I'm going to propose, our staff would return to being those lowest paid loaders and street scene operatives. While there are plans, in fact, to correct that issue through the normal salary process before next year's budget, I believe we have an opportunity to ensure that we honour our commitment to the valued service of these staff. and the service that they provide by ensuring that they move from their bonus status to their expected new level, which puts them on a par with their colleagues in our neighbouring districts. Allowing these staff to fall down to a base level while our local democracy resolves the market pay would be a detrimental move, I believe. The proposal I'm going to put forward allows for the staff identified to receive a market supplement to align their pay with those of their colleagues in other districts from October this year to the end of this financial year, at which point the next budget should be accommodating this through the normal salary process. There is probably work which needs to be done aside from this in aligning our pay scales correctly to match the current market conditions. However, this choice today would allow that work to continue, but would still reward our hard-working frontline service staff appropriately. And the amendment is to adjust the proposed amended budgets to apply a 5% market supplement for loader and operational street scene staff to align their basic wage with that of the surrounding authorities. This will require a £93,000 adjustment to the commercial and operations service cost shown at Table 3, increasing the 2021 proposed service budget to 8.727 million, thereby increasing the proposed service variance to 1.319 million, and adjusting the general funding net budget requirement from 20.581 million to 20.674 million. This amendment, if supported, will increase the forecast net budget deficit to 1.315 million, as shown at Table 3. It's expected that the salary grades will be addressed to ensure commensurate pay in subsequent years. And I'll propose that amendment for discussion by the Cabinet, and I do hope that they will support it. Thank you, Mr. Callum.
Thank you, Peter, for that. And I know I keep wondering whether or not we're referring to each other as councillors or first name.
Oh, no.
We keep flitting.
Yeah.
But no, I'm fully supportive of what you have just proposed as an amendment to Adam's motion. You know what? During the COVID crisis, our waste collectors were collecting, in excess of 80,000 bins a week. And I personally visited the depot on a couple of occasions with our chief executive to personally thank the staff for what they were doing, because they do lead one of the first and key and critical services that we as a district council operate. So I'm more than happy to support this, and I'll firstly open for debate and questions from Cabinet members before I open wider. So Councillor Stokes, Adam first, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I will still call you Leader, don't worry. No, I'm happy to accept that additional recommendation and make that number 3 to the recommendations on page 43, so we can include it going forward. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have any other Cabinet members that wish to speak on this initially? No. Councillor Baxter, I believe you've got a question. Are you there, Ashley?
I've just released your microphone, Councillor Baxter, so if you try speaking, hopefully you'll be able to come through.
I've got it. Found it. Okay. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
We can hear you.
Smashing. Great. Thank you. I obviously welcome the idea that our staff would be paid commensurate with other authorities. How does this leave the staff who do our grounds maintenance, who are employed by the wholly owned company Environment SK? Is there sufficient budget within the Environment SK budget and profit forecasts to ensure that those staff are paid a proper wage too?
I'll hand that over to Peter in the first instance.
Yeah, that's fine. The salaries paid by ESK are a matter for ESK Limited and not for this council, and they are paid in line with what the market allows.
Brilliant. It might be a question to raise at a companies committee meeting, Ashley. Super. Well, with no further speakers, then Lucy, I propose that we go to the vote, please, as it's already been proposed and seconded.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Kellen Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Thank you. That's carried, Leader.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So moving on to items for the Cabinet decision, which is obviously key. The first one we have is on the cultural strategy. So can I firstly thank Rosemary as the Cabinet Member for Culture and the Visitor Economy, alongside the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and all the members that have been involved in this really exciting strategy for the Council, including those in the arts. And it is really great to see a developing action plan as outlined in 6.5. And, I think as we've already approved the corporate plan, the visitor economy is critical for us as a district to ensure we continue to thrive, and the cultural economy supports the recovery of the district. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Rosemary, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Have you been looking at my report that I'm about to give? Thank you very much. Well, as the Leader stated, the introduction of a new culture strategy for South K will provide both residents and providers with a clear blueprint for the future delivery of South Kesteven's cultural offer, and has been developed through extensive conversations with members of the public. The document brings together arts, heritage, the sciences, sports and physical activity, and will centre on wider collaboration across the sector as a whole, providing greater efficiency and connectivity between events, projects and initiatives. Of course, due to the pandemic of 2020, there has been a challenging year for culture, with events postponed, services halted and a great uncertainty for the future. However, the past few months have also brought into focus the vital part cultural activities play in the health and well-being of communities and the role of culture in our economic and emotional recovery. The proposed new cultural strategy will focus on three key messages: partnerships, communications and accessibility. With a long journey still ahead for this sector, it will provide a framework to guide South Kesteven's District Council's endeavours in supporting individual practitioners and organisations working together on the path to re-establish our cultural landscape. Culture will be at the heart of the Council's corporate strategy, underpinning our work for the residents across services, supporting our efforts for South Kesteven to be a wonderful place to live, work and visit. I would like to thank Councillor Stevens, Chairman of Cultural and Visitor Economy and her committee, Michael Cross, Head of Arts and his team, and all those who took part in the consultation to make this strategy a reality. I therefore recommend to the Council that they approve the adoption of the strategy as set out in Appendix 1 of the report in Agenda Item 6. Recognise that the adoption of the cultural strategy is a key action within the emerging corporate plan, which also supports improvement and investment in local arts and cultural venues across the district. And number 3, notes the conclusions highlighted in the cultural strategy and advocates including these points in the corporate plan, action plan, supporting the authority's goals to become one of the best places to live, work and visit in the UK. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Rosemary. And I think, it is another great document, actually, offering a very clear, simple set of messages, the role of what we will do to remove those barriers to engagement and also make greater use of our power and district-wide network, and also by working alongside the committee members. So let's firstly start with Annie, please.
Just want to say really that I'm happy to support this cultural strategy. It's got enormous benefits for the health and well-being of our district. The pandemic has shown us how our communities have come together, and I know we've got many challenges ahead, but this strategy is really exciting and it's an excellent document. Well done, Rosemary and her team. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Annie. Robert?
Thank you, Leader. I'd also like to add my support to the strategy, especially focusing on our housing tenants. This sort of thing really enriches lives of residents, which will be a help and also well-being through a programme of exciting events and activities. I'd also like to say maybe even Well, I'd like to state how fortuitous I think we are in our particular district that we are still able to afford this sort of programme to be of activities of social wealth and of mental well-being for the challenging times ahead. So, and I did not say it, leader, so I'd like to just pay tribute also to Adam Stokes and to the finance team for the huge amount of ongoing work they keep putting into our budget, so we can monitor and just see how factually, financially we are correct in the direction and the course that we take the council. Thank you, leader.
No, thank you, Robert. Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Callum. I'm delighted to see the strategy. I'm delighted to see such things as sport and physical activity taking a prominent role within it as well. That's obviously something that I think that I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is going to pan out and how much stronger our relationships with our sporting partners throughout the district are going to become, because of course this links across to things like our parks and gardens as well, where we've got our tennis courts and our table tennis, and you know, the opportunities that we've got with those green spaces to help people get out and feel better. So couldn't support this more.
Brilliant, thank you, Peter. Barry?
Yeah, thank you, Callum. I'd just like to say, Rosemary, congratulations. It's a great report, and I think it's exciting. The same as everyone has said, it's a good way forward. We need this, and I hope everyone can partake in it in some way. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Barry. Do any other Cabinet members wish to speak first before I open it up? No. Councillor Baxter, you have a question.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. Two questions. First of all, how within the report I can't see any measures of performance or specific targets, particularly in relation to sport. So in 5 years' time, how will we know if this strategy has worked or not? And secondly, the Bourne Cycle Festival, I haven't read it thoroughly, but I don't see a mention of the Bourne Cycle Festival. And if that's to go ahead, then decisions need to be made quite quickly. So can I ask Councillor Trollope-Bellew what she's currently doing in order to make sure that that can happen?
Oh, hold on, Rosemary, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. Apologies for that. In regards to the Bourne Cycle Festival, as we've said previously, we have in conversation with a gentleman from Bourne, and we have asked him to provide a sound business case, and we are looking into that. So I don't think it really be fair to say any more about that at this present time. And performance, that's something we would obviously look into as the strategy progresses.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Rosemary. And obviously I'm sure you'll be working alongside the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in bringing that piece of work forwards in relation to key action planners as well. So with no further questions, it's been proposed by Rosemary and seconded by Annie. So Lucy, if we could move to the vote, please.
Certainly, Leader. Councillor Callum Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Lucy. So moving on to agenda item number 7, which is the area officers customer consultation. So if I can firstly thank Annie for all of her diligent leadership in the development of these proposals alongside her senior officers. And obviously the report covers the outcome of the 2 customer consultations relating to changes in the area office provision. And I think it's certainly timely to review this area of work, especially because of the changing customer behaviours post-COVID. And I know, and I'm sure Rosemary wants to speak on this, but it's really exciting to see a comprehensive improvement programme for the Stanford Arts Centre as part of the proposed service developments. So I'd like to hand over to Annie, please.
Thank you, Leader. The way we operate as a council and a society has changed, like you've just said, over many years, and most recently as a result of COVID pandemic. And it's only right, therefore, that we look at how we do things on a regular basis to ensure that we're meeting the needs of those who use our services. This report considers our face-to-face customer service provision in Market Deeping and Stanford. It details the results from 2 consultation exercises that were designed to understand the needs and preferences of those accessing council services from these facilities. For some, the way that they accessed our services changed when we went into lockdown in March of this year. Our offices being closed naturally saw customers utilise other methods of contact, including telephone, website and via email. We saw an increase in demand across these areas, but we were also able to improve our performance and continue to provide residents with the house. From the 23rd of March to the end of August, we received over 60,000 calls and over 11,000 emails. We completed a second consultation exercise because we wanted to understand better whether this change had shifted opinion for each of the sites. Thank you to all those that provided feedback to us. We can see that while some customers liked face-to-face settings, people are more supportive of our proposals and already choosing to access services digitally. We have used the consultation findings to inform our equality assessment and to look at options for how our services can be delivered. I've put forward a number of recommendations for how we modernise our customer offer. Firstly, by consulting and engaging with the Deepings Community Library, we've been able to secure within the library through the use of a kiosk and enablement of access to PCs and signposting. This will enable those who really need to physically attend somewhere to still access services. We're grateful for the support of the library on this initiative and will be working with them to ensure a smooth transition takes place. In Stanford, we will relocate our offer a few hundred metres down the road into the Stanford Arts Centre. We'll put in place a kiosk and telephone service, with customer services officers being able to support customers during times of seasonal peak demand. PC support will also continue to be accessible from the Stanford Library. To enable that to happen, we want to invest in this facility to both secure the high quality provision of arts and enable our customer offer to be delivered effectively. We'll be scheduling some much needed renovation work at the site, which will help to improve the effectiveness of the facility for both those accessing the art services and those that come into the building to transact with us for other council services. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions from any of the Cabinet colleagues.
Brilliant. Thank you, Annie. Rosemary.
Thank you. I think this is an excellent piece of work that possibly should have been done a number of years ago, and I think for it to be relocated into the Stanford Arts Centre in particular will be the best of all worlds. So I would also like to say well done to Annie and her team, and I would like to second this recommendation.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rosemary. Robert? I think you initially started this piece of work.
Yes, can you see and hear me? Because I've been dipping in and out.
Yes, we can now.
Okay, fine. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. I was the early consultant on this, if you'd like to put it that way. I'd like to commend the joined up a connection between customer services and the Arts Centre for Stanford. I mean, it just makes a joined up approach. It supports the Arts Centre and the viability, and it also leaves an action point in Stanford as well. So I'm really, really pleased to see that. We're discussing the Market Deeping one as well, are we, at this point? Yeah, and also, albeit I think my early attempts at moving the action point at Market Deeping were a little bit short on consultation. I'm very pleased to see that there's going to be signposting to the Deepings Library and with an enhanced self-service offer, so that's really great as well. So I think we've done the best, as has been previously alluded to, addressing a service cost in both Stanford and Market Deeping, and we've actually modernised the way forward and made economies in doing so. So well done to all. Thank you, Leader.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robert. Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Callum, and thank you, Annie, for the work that you've done, and Robert for starting this ball rolling. In fact, I just wanted to clarify for the, or wondered if you could just clarify, Annie, that for the most needy and vulnerable in our society, there will still be an option if they need it for face-to-face under both options. I can see there is one for Stanford, I just can't see it specified for the Deepings one, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Stanford, we're going to have a customer services advisor in peak demands, and for any vulnerable residents that needs to be seen face to face, and that's also for Market Deeping. If we have a vulnerable resident who needs to see somebody face to face, that will be arranged.
Okay, that's great. I couldn't see it being obvious. So that was all in the options that we were recommending. Thank you.
Brilliant, super. Thank you for that. Obviously, this has been proposed and seconded. There's no further speakers. Sorry, Councillor Dilks. You there, Phil?
Yes, I am. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you, Callum. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. Yeah, just to say, I particularly do welcome the move in Deeping. It'll serve Deeping St James as well as Market Deeping. But as Rosemary actually said, perhaps it was something we should have done a few years ago. And certainly that was what we were trying to get done when the library was under threat, several years ago with county council changes. And we did come to the district council and try to get the office that the district council has, which we all know is in the back corner of the community centre. Not many people even know it's there, and I do welcome actually getting a spot in the library, if I can call it that. Thank you.
No, not at all. I think it is a positive thing for the Deepings, and hopefully, more people actually access the services by it being a bit more accessible and visible. So, yeah, hopefully it should be a positive. Brilliant. Then, Lucy, can we move to the vote, please?
Certainly, Leader. Councillor Callum Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
That's carried, Leader.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Lucy. So moving on to the items for information. So particularly the first item, agenda item number 8, which is matters referred to Cabinet by the Council or overview and scrutiny committees. Obviously, there was a budget overview and scrutiny meeting. There's no specific recommendations from that joint committee meeting. I'd like to thank Councillor Graham Geel for his chairmanship of that joint meeting and members for their engagement. And obviously, I look forward to that being presented to the Council on the 17th of September. And there's nothing further on this item. So moving on to item number 9, which is the key and non-key decisions taken under delegated powers. So just looking at these, so reintroduction of recovery activity, obviously a non-key decision was taken by Adam on the 18th of August. Is there anything further you wanted to add, Adam?
No, you're right. Thank you, Leader. I think it explains everything in the report in front of us.
Brilliant. Thank you. And that is just for noting. So moving on to agenda item number 10, which is the representations and questions from non-cabinet members then, please. If you would like to indicate in the chat function. Councillor Dilks, you're first.
Thank you. Video on. Thank you. It's a question or representation to the Deputy Leader and possibly yourself as well regarding the Leisure Centre. It's almost 9 months since you, Barry, promised regular updates to Deepings Ward members on progress towards the long-awaited new Deepings Leisure Centre. But despite since publicly repeating your promise, these have not happened, or not yet. In addition, the February minutes of the Finance Overview and Scrutiny Committee records, and I quote, "The member working leisure group is being established to meet monthly to assess the results of the feasibility work and to ensure the vision and ambitions of members are fully understood and incorporated, and the group will help shape and develop the work." And then the culture minutes in February go further and state, "The leader of the council had decided to work with the ward members for each of the leisure centres in turn to seek local input before any decisions were made. And after these meetings, the options would be brought back to committee." Can you first confirm that no meetings of any of these groups have yet been held? And further, in a written report to Deep and St James Parish Council some 10 days ago, you stated that, and I quote, "The leisure centre building itself will now be located entirely on LCC land and the artificial surface pitch." However, the parish council chairman alleged this wasn't true according to the latest plans supplied to him, but not shared, unfortunately, with ward members. Could you please take this opportunity today to clarify the position and clear up the confusion? And finally, given the absence to date of collaboration with local members, could you also confirm the forecast expected ballpark cost of the proposed Deepings Leisure Centre and state the reasons why you believe the school field to be the best location, and say what other options have been considered? Thank you, Callum.
Barry.
Well, thank you then very much, Phil, for that. And as you know that, am I on? Have I got my speaker on? Yes indeed. Yeah. Is that when this all started, when I took over the portfolio, we didn't have this wonderful pandemic that we've had to endure. So things did go a bit haywire. And I probably made some promises, which I didn't, it wasn't really a promise, it was a wish that we would meet. And I did talk to you on the 30th of January, and I keep on repeating this, that we did go through things what you considered to be important. However, as I got into the portfolio, and realised that particularly we're talking about the Deepings, because I have visited all the other centres. I have now actually visited the Deeping Centre when I was down there about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. But I have updated you in particular as a member of Deeping St James Parish Council, and we have talked about how we can do this. The wording in that report, I don't have it up on the screen now, but was incorrect if I put that the artificial surface pitch was to be on LCC ground. That is not the case. The case is that it will be in exactly the same place as the existing one is, which is on Deeping St James Parish Council land. So if I did make that mistake, which I didn't think I did, but if that's the case, that's where it's going to go, in the very same place, because it's the easiest place to put it. And I have relayed out the whole of the scheme there at the current grounds, because we have to take into account the school, which will lose the swimming pool, and the swimming pool will now come into the leisure centre. And that leisure centre is now, because of the input from various clubs, which you heard was made known at Deeping St James Parish Council, that the rugby club wants to keep its club pavilion, although we were intending to put changing rooms and so on inside or on the outside of the new leisure centre, so that they would have those facilities. It seems that they do not want that anymore. So we will, when we get down to the finalities, the final plans of the leisure centre, we will discuss that with the Deepings members. That would include Market Deeping as well, as to what is to go in there. At the moment, I've asked for 2 prices and 2 costs of running it for an 8-lane, 25-metre long swimming pool with a movable floor, or an 8-lane 50-metre pool. But I can assure you that the 50-metre pool will cost so much money to run that we won't be able to go along with that one. It will probably be, but I want the figures so that you can have them and see them. Every 50-metre lane pool in the country runs at a loss. So what we're doing now is, I believe, and you have been invited, Phil, to come to a meeting on Thursday. And I think you've also invited councillors from Market Deeping as well to join us to discuss the leisure centre and to get this finally approved, because we have got the funding from the Football Foundation that will support practically, I think, is about 80%, if my calculations are right, of the funding of the artificial pitch. But the caveat to this is that it is for football and not for hockey. And I understand that I know Councillor Baxter is particularly interested, Ashley's particularly interested that we get hockey on it. Unfortunately, Hockey England has not stamped up with any sort of funding. So and the Football Foundation is saying, if we want the £650,000 from us, it's going to be for football or rugby football. So I don't, I can't help that. But we want that new pitch. It will have new lighting, it will have new surface, and we will eventually knock down the changing rooms, which are awful. I went in there the other day. They're particularly bad, so they will come down, and that, I think, will, and I say I think because the plans haven't been finished, will go in the leisure centre itself. So Phil, yeah, do bear with me a bit. I'm doing my best here to get this sorted. It hasn't been an easy thing. We haven't even gone through what we're going to put in that leisure centre yet, other than a swimming pool. And we would like, of course, we have Karen Whitfield, who's head of leisure, and I have talked about it, that we would like, the facilities such as saunas, the fitness suites, the pool, of course, with a learner pool. The pool will have a movable floor, and we're looking also at the indoor courts for sports, and that indoor court will also double up as a venue for a venue for performances or other theatrical occasions, similar to the ones at the Deepings at the moment. And that was put forward by many of your fellow councillors in the Deepings, and that includes Market Deeping as well as Deeping St James, that was not available at the moment at the Deepings. So we're going to fulfil not just a leisure centre, we're going to put in, it is leisure really, going to a performance I suppose, but not necessarily a fitness centre. It's going to be for that as well. For the costs, I can give you a rough cost of 20 million. Which is what it's going to set us back. We're going to have to borrow that money, but if we get a move on, we hope that we'll be able to get it. But the thing is now, Phil, and this goes for Ashley and for all our other councillors there, Jill and Judy, Bob, Virginia, that we need to get this going now, to get this in. Once we're all agreed we want an artificial pitch, we've got the funding, let's sign this up, let's get the lease on the land, and we can move that forward. Where we put the leisure centre, which is different to the place it was in before, we can actually put that artificial pitch in. So if we give it the start now, that artificial pitch will be in place by next year for the next year's season, starting in September.
I think
that's about it.
No, thank you for that. A very comprehensive report. And I think, look, if I can just say a few things as well on this. I mean, I know we keep obsessing about the members around these centres, but actually it's not just the members who might actually sit in the ward around this, but it's actually the wider members for that area. So for the Deepings, I represent Keswick Ward, and I can tell you that a majority of my residents will also be accessing the Deepings Leisure Centre. This is going to be, let's not underestimate this, that the leisure development and enhancement for our district, this is going to be the largest spend that we will probably ever see as elected members. it is huge, and of course engagement will happen at the appropriate time. And I know it's about not just involving the members that represent that area, but also the wider area, so we can all be engaged in that process. But Paul Thomas, I know you're obviously the director for responsible for leisure. Is there anything that you wanted to add in addition to what Barry's also said?
Yes, please. Thank you, Leader. I think it's probably just important to remind members of the response that Councillor Dobson provided after the last meeting of the Finance, Economic Development and Corporate Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, because the question was asked of the member working groups there as well. And I'll surmise the response, but I think it's important that we establish this as the position. I know there's been a lot of questions asked about when the member working group will meet, and I do believe this answers that question, Councillor Dilks. I'll jump in kind of halfway through, which says that work is taking place to secure a site in Deeping St James for the development of a new leisure facility, and until this land is secured, it's impossible to finalise the necessary work in relation to the design and development costs of the proposed facility. Once this work has been concluded and there are some clear options available, the member working groups will convene to ensure that local ward members are fully consulted on the plans. In addition to this, the joint OSC will be convened to ensure that the improvement plans are the appropriate level of scrutiny, and then an informed report on the leisure improvement options can be presented to Cabinet. I think that's anticipated for later this year, whether it's November or December. We all know that there's an additional piece of work that we're needing to progress in respect of leisure at the same time as the development options. But I think just to reiterate and support Councillor Dobson in what he's been saying about the member working groups, that they will happen, and they will happen at the right time when there is something meaningful and useful to talk to. And at the moment, there's some work to be done before we can be in that position. Thank you, Leader.
No worries. Thank you, Paul, for that as well.
Can I just say thank you, Barry, thank you, Paul. There was lots of new information I wasn't aware of in there. It's just the fact, and I do sympathise. Of course, these things are, they take a long time to come to fruition, but clearly decisions are being made now. And, in my view, it is time, at least, if we could have, a meeting of local members. I think that, and happy to, with yourself as well, Callum, as local greater area, that would be very welcome, to sort of, thrash some of these things out. I have to say thank you, but I'm not aware of the meeting on Thursday, but I'll find out about that one, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Phil, I'll just come back on that. Listen, this is for all of us. And I haven't got a clue what's going into the leisure centre yet. I mean, the first thing is we can get this football pitch in, but we need agreement on it. And the stumbling block has been whether we can get the lease agreement tied up with Deeping St James Parish Council, who own that land. But I think that is nearly sorted. I understand from Karen Whitfield that we've got this meeting on Thursday, which I believe to be still at 2 o'clock. I'm not sure, but Steve Gilbert, who's your chairman, of course, is going to get that set up with Julie Fortnum. And we will both Karen and I will be with you on Thursday, and we can talk through that. Once we've got that in place, and once we know where we're going, we can, I think, we will then have a meeting. We'll then have a meeting.
We'll organise a roundtable virtual meeting of everybody interested in all the ward members in Deeping St James and Market Deeping, and then probably the Keswick ward as well, and we'll have that virtual meeting.
As many members that want to come along, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for the time. Thank you.
Brilliant. And Ashley, have you got a question?
Yeah, I certainly do. I had two questions. I've now got three. I think I'll leave the one about the media centre to the end to give myself time to calm down. So I have a question for Councillor Mosley, which is about the announcement by the County Council that they're intending to go ahead with paper card collection scheme, which obviously I welcome. It's a shame that it's going to take until 2024 to get there, especially as the County Council hopefully won't exist by 2024, and it will be other people making the decision. But while we all appreciate it's better to reduce, reuse and recycle, we don't need to rehearse that argument again. Councillor Mosley mentioned earlier on about the food waste scheme. Can you tell me if the county is going to continue to support the food waste scheme, whether it will be rolled out and whether or not we will be doing it if they don't?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Yeah, I'll address your little comment about the paper card in a bit, if you don't mind indulging me, Councillor Baxter. But in terms of food waste, the County Council wrote to us and said that they no longer wish to continue the food waste collection trial, and we as a district council are continuing that, and we are exploring areas with our County Council colleagues to allow us to continue to deliver that service and expand it. So we are working to do that, and it will be done by us, and that's my ambition. These things do take time, but I certainly won't be wanting to push another bin on our residents while taking one away that's more valuable, in my opinion, because it does in fact do the reduce. In terms of your comments about the paper card, I mean, this is the County Council have issued a press release which has indicated their ambition that they will fund the rollout of that, but they forgot to put in there that it's up to the democratic procedure of each of the districts as to whether or not they wish to do it, and I think that there'll be a healthy debate when that comes along. There are benefits to it in terms of cost, but again, it relies on us giving all of our residents yet another bin, so I can't imagine that, I can imagine there's going to be some debate around that, but at the end of the day, that will be in 2 or 3 years time, and I would hope that we will have a solution to make sure that we've got the food waste rolled out by then. Thank you.
And thank you, Peter. Thank you, Chair. It's a shame that the County Council is not supporting the food waste scheme, and I think with regard to the potential extra bin, the impending climate catastrophe is going to mean that we all have to make some difficult decisions. Personally, I could wear another bin if it meant that the planet survives a bit longer. I don't think that's going to be people's biggest worry over the next 30 years with regard to climate change. My next question is for Councillor Dobson. I asked a couple of weeks ago for officers to give me an answer to this, but I got no response. So can Councillor Dobson briefly outline the procurement process that was used to hire the consultants with whom we spent £155,000 for Invest SK, a recent Invest SK project. As a director of Invest SK, along with you, Chair, I would assume that one of you had been involved in overseeing or overlooking the procurement process for such a large value contract.
Thank you for that, Councillor Baxter. I will ask Paul Thomas to respond.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Baxter, I will provide a response to you via email. I'm just pulling the information together for you. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Paul. And your final question, Ashley?
Well, the final one is just about the leisure centre. I think we've had such a lovely meeting, and I've avoided, as always, I don't want to kind of diss anybody, but for Councillor Dobson to say that COVID is a reason why we haven't had a meeting is really very disingenuous. We've been waiting since February, and he has promised repeatedly, probably about 3 times he promised a meeting in June. Mr. Thomas said that we would be consulted when there was something meaningful and useful to talk to. Do I conclude that there is nothing meaningful and useful to talk to? Obviously not, because I attended a meeting of my local parish council, and that was the only way I could find any information, either from Barry Dobson, which turned out to be incorrect, or about the scheme generally. We really have, as local members, we have been kept in the dark, and I don't know if that's true of the members for Keswick as well. If so, then that's even worse, I guess. For Councillor Dobson to say, and I quote, "I haven't got a clue what's going into this leisure centre yet," doesn't fill anybody with confidence.
No,
I think Barry, look, I think Councillor Dobson and Paul have already said we're going to have a roundtable meeting to discuss this, and let's putting all the cards on the table now. This leisure centre is going to happen. As Conservatives, we stood at the election and we said that we were going to have a new leisure centre for the Deepings. That's what we stood on, and that is what we are going to deliver as a council. Now, I do know that updates have been provided. Yes, I am involved with Barry on this project, and I will ensure that we all have a virtual meeting of the stakeholders to discuss this scheme.
I called for that meeting. I actually emailed Karen. Suddenly it's come about that we're having a meeting later this week, because I think that's the only way that we're going to break the impasse with the parish council, who have legitimate concerns about how the centre is going to be delivered. The Conservatives stood on a platform that they would deliver new leisure centres in the Deepings and Stanford. And I'm sure that not all of those promises are going to be delivered. So really, we're just asking to be treated with respect, to be treated like adults, and included in the consultation. Because believe it or not, some of us who live in the Deepings do have some insight into how our own children use leisure facilities and how our neighbours use leisure facilities. And we have people down the road saying, I'm aged, this is my only therapy, I need to go for a swim. So I'm quite insulted that Barry Dobson is trying to say that he didn't promise updates. And
well, can I just tell you, Ashley Baxter, that I am insulted as well. So just listen to me. I've just given a whole report to Phil, and he has accepted that. Yes, I agree. I would have liked some more meetings. I've told you about this time and time again, and you've been in the parish council meetings at Deeping St James. You've listened to what I've had to say. And just a moment, and let me finish. It is going to be, I do have a clue what's going to be in the leisure centre. Normally you find swimming pools, you find saunas, you find fitness suites, and you find everything else. We just haven't defined what goes in it yet until we have got the layout of the land. And I have told you that we have not got the land signed up yet for Deeping St James. Once we can do this, and hopefully we can do this finally on Thursday, then we will put the artificial pitch in. We will then know exactly where we have to go back to Sport England, because the rugby club wants to keep its clubhouse. If it wants to keep its clubhouse, we have to lose a football pitch. And if that football pitch is lost, we have to make sure that Sport England is still going to sign off on this. And then we go back into the leisure centre itself. We've got the sighting of where it should go. And now we want to talk to everyone. That includes you, Ashley. And, I've not kept you out of any major decisions on this, because none has been made other than the siting and trying to get the land. So if we can get that land now. Sorry?
You haven't even shown me any of the plans the whole way along. I've not been involved.
Listen, Ashley, there are no plans of the leisure centre inside. You have got a copy of the Mace report, which is as much as I've seen. All right? So that's it as far as I'm concerned. You can come on. You're invited to Deeping St James Parish Council, I believe. And I don't know, and I can't, tell you that's true, but I think Deeping St James Parish Council are setting up a meeting for Thursday afternoon at 2:00. If that's the case, I understand you are coming along. Virginia Moran is coming along. Phil is obviously going to be there. He's here at Parish Council anyway, and we will get it done. Well, you're going to work with? Yeah, you're going to work with us or not?
2 days' notice of a meeting is inadequate. You would never do that in any other circumstance.
Sorry, back.
I have not set it. Deeping St James has set it. All right.
Exactly.
We will arrange a virtual roundtable meeting for all the stakeholders interested in this site, and we will brief you on what we know to date, and that will happen. And I will be there, as Barry will be there, and our senior officers will be there as well, with what we have to date to discuss. Councillor Reid, you've indicated.
Thank you, Leader. I'm looking forward to us actually be able to actually making the evaluation for the whole district and also for our neighbours as to whether it's going to be a 25 or 50 metre pool. And I understand that 50 metre pools are a cost to all of those that have one, but I wish to evaluate what the cost will actually be of a 50-metre pool and what that amenity would actually make to contribute towards our neighbours, as well as to our district, that obviously will pay for part or most of the development, and of course the receipts that it would bring from a larger vicinity. So whereby which maybe
that will form part of the business case.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think I can tell you now that a 50-metre pool is not sustainable and it is not financially viable, and it will be a 25-metre lane pool, because 50-metre pools are notorious for not being financial. We are not bankrupting the council by building one leisure centre.
There is not a 50-metre pool in the country that makes money. They all make losses.
Exactly.
It costs £8 million more to build. Okay,
exactly.
That I know.
But let's have that discussion at our virtual roundtable meeting, and we can put all the facts on the table and have that conversation. Brilliant. Well, thank you for that extended representations and questions from non-cabinet members. So moving on to agenda item number 11, which is the cabinet forward plan. So members will see a number of items have been put back to our next meeting of cabinet on the 13th of October, as these weren't ready for this agenda. So I am looking forward to receiving reports, particularly around public space protection orders, and a number of key briefs for our housing development as well. And this is just for noting. There are no urgent items or items exempt from this agenda. Therefore, at 15:11, I am happy to call this meeting to a close, and I look forward to seeing you all probably at our next meeting. For most of us, will be the annual general meeting of the council. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.